Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, the latest in military and veterans news as a transition to the Trump administration continues. Find out about the latest moves that could affect you. Plus, the Army takes another step forward to integrate hybrid tactical vehicles. Check out one model tested recently by the 10th Mountain Division. Also, a recent Trump executive order blocks family of U.S. service members from coming to the States. Learn about the refugee program put on hold by the new administration. And how do service members get ready for the specialized mission of astronaut retrieval? We've got some footage to show you. Lastly, the Navy goes full Hollywood to paint a picture of how it wants to conduct warfare 20 years from now. Get a look at the video later in the show. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., it's the latest in news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Jen Judson. The Trump administration has wasted no time in implementing changes across the government and at the Pentagon, with shifts felt across the military and veteran communities. To keep up with all the latest headlines, we turn to Military Times Capitol Hill Bureau Chief Leo Shane, who joined us for a wrap-up. Have a look.
President Donald Trump is wasting no time enacting his planned reforms for the Department of Defense. This week, just a few hours after new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth arrived at the Pentagon for his first official day in office, Trump signed 4 executive orders with far-reaching effects for the military. The first renews Trump's push to ban transgender troops from the ranks and transgender recruits from joining the military. The order doesn't kick out any service members yet, but it does direct the Defense Secretary to develop plans to force those dismissals sometime down the road. Trump tried to block all transgender individuals from serving during his first term in office, but he faced legal challenges. And outside advocates are vowing to fight those plans again. They argue the ban will hurt morale and readiness, and it discriminates unfairly against a group of Americans who want to serve their country. Advocates have been pushing that message out to the public over the last several days.
How does having transgender people in the military affect lethality?
It enhances lethality. Transgender people are a segment of America. The only thing that makes them different, the fact that they're trans doesn't change their ability to serve. It doesn't stop them from serving on the front lines, which is what they're doing right now. It enhances unit cohesion because it looks like the America that they serve.
In my experience with my unit, with my platoons throughout my training, a non-issue. Nobody cares that I'm transgender in the military because it's something about me that has no impact on my ability to perform and to serve my country. The claims that are being made against transgender service people are not based in any factual anything in any sense of the imagination.
Trump also signed an executive order allowing troops kicked out of the military for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine to now rejoin the ranks and possibly receive thousands of dollars in back pay. Details for how those reenlistments will work still have to be sorted out. But the move follows through on Trump campaign promises to apologize to the roughly 8,200 service members dismissed over this issue. Those troops have already had a chance to rejoin the military, but so far only about 110 have. This promise of receiving back benefits and paychecks may entice more to return. The Defense Department has 60 days to work out how to bring those veterans back and ensure that they're ready for the service. The move also follows up on a promise Trump made in his inauguration speech.
This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay.
Now, all those moves came on the heels of Trump's surprise firing of 17 inspectors general, including the Defense Department's top watchdog. Trump said the moves were needed to shake up the offices and to ensure independent oversight of federal operations. But critics say the moves will do the opposite. And they worry without a confirmed inspector general for the Defense Department, many of Trump's military moves will escape needed scrutiny. He has not said when he will name a replacement for the post. On Tuesday, new Defense Secretary Hegseth charged the acting Inspector General with investigating former Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley for misconduct during his time in the service. He also pulled Milley's federal security protection and revoked all of his security clearances. This is just the latest showdown between Trump and Milley, who served as the military's top uniformed officer during Trump's first term in office. The two sparred frequently then and after Trump lost the 2020 election, with Trump accusing Milley of insubordination and treason for a variety of alleged offenses. President Joe Biden issued a pardon to Milley as one of his last acts in office. Biden said Milley was not guilty of any crimes, but he was worried that Trump may try to enact revenge on the retired Army general. Now, Hegseth's order seems to open the door for some sort of retroactive punishment, although exactly what can be done is unclear. Lawmakers from both parties have promised to keep a close eye on the impact of all of these moves, but Congress has its own defense work to finish too. The federal budget, including funding for the military, runs out of money in 6 weeks. Trump and Republican leaders in the House and Senate have yet to settle on any funding plan past mid-March. For Military Times, I'm Leo Shane.
Next up, hybrid electric vehicles are everywhere, but the U.S. Army has been slow to adopt the capability for tactical operations. Even so, companies are continuously pitching hybrid solutions to the military, which would bring desired operational attributes like stealth and help charge the ever-increasing number of batteries on the battlefield. GM Defense pitched a hybrid next-generation tactical vehicle prototype last fall, and Defense News got a chance to drive it at the company's Milford Proving Ground in Michigan. But now the Army is taking the vehicle for a spin in wintry Bavarian terrain during Combined Resolve, an exercise held at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Hohenfels, Germany. The 3rd Brigade, 10th Mountain Division has spent several weeks conducting testing on the vehicle to continue to guide the Army's future decisions on such technology adoption. The Army does not yet have a requirement for a new Humvee, but the vehicle technology is now over 40 years old. GM Defense's new hybrid Humvee takes the Chevy Silverado truck and the same Duramax engine used on the Army's infantry squad vehicle and pairs it with an electric battery capable of producing roughly 300 kilowatt hours of power output and a 15-gallon fuel tank. The infantry squad vehicle was also with the 3rd Brigade in Germany as the Army considers additional configurations for the ride. Infantry units have recognized the utility of the ISV beyond its core task for carrying troops into battle through other operational exercises and evaluation events over the past several years. As the war in Ukraine rages on, soldiers fighting there have shown the need for quieter vehicles. The technology in hybrid vehicles allows them to drive and power systems without a loud running engine. The hybrid technology also helps decrease the battery requirements for units on the battlefield. The Army has gone from a platoon carrying roughly 48 pounds of batteries in Desert Storm and Desert Shield to carrying 1,200 pounds of batteries. GM Defense has said the vehicle is also designed to be transportable in C-130 and C-17 aircraft and can be sling-loaded by a CH-47 Chinook cargo helicopter or an MH-53 King Stallion. Whether the Army chooses to move forward on hybrid vehicles depends on feedback and budget. But the service over the past year has sent a variety of capabilities to units globally as part of its Transformation in Contact initiative. This allows soldiers and commanders to try new tech in real operational environments and scenarios to better confirm whether new capabilities will work outside of controlled, less realistic test environments. The Army is now also evaluating how those capabilities can work together. In an attempt to show the art of the possible, GM Defense featured at the Association of the U.S. Army's annual conference last fall an ISV set up as a control vehicle for a robotics and autonomy platoon that was towing a small multi-purpose equipment transport or SMET robot and hauling a silent tactical energy-enhanced dismount military cart or STEED. Those both were spotted in the mix at Combined Resolve. A number of other systems under consideration for possible rapid adoption included a host of small drones such as the Skydio RQ-28 quadcopter and a small rotary wing drone from Anduril called Ghost. The Army has scrapped a number of legacy programs, including large and loud drones, for a wide variety of commercial off-the-shelf options, buying new stuff rapidly that works and getting it into the hands of soldiers rather than holding lengthy and larger competitions. When we come back, a look at the executive order that barred some family of service members from coming to the U.S. from Afghanistan. Stay tuned. Welcome back. One of President Trump's early executive orders as he took office recently was a mandate to halt entry to the United States via the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. One of the effects of that order was the barring of family of service members in Afghanistan from coming to the U.S., along with others fleeing the Taliban after working with American forces. To dig deeper into the order's impacts, Military Times' Riley Cedar joined us for a breakdown.
Families of U.S. service members who live in Afghanistan are stuck in the country right now, and they're blocked from relocating to the United States because of an executive order President Donald Trump signed his first day in office last week. That order is called Realigning the United States Refugee Admissions Program, and it went into effect January 27th. More specifically, there's an estimated 200 family members of U.S. troops that are in Afghanistan, and they are attempting to flee the Taliban through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. That's according to Sean Vanderveer, who is president of an organization called Afghan Evac, which helps Afghan allies relocate.
They feel betrayed. They feel let down. They feel betrayed by their country. And like, how could this possibly happen after 3.5 years and after President Trump campaigned on all of this?
The stated reason for the order was that an influx of immigration into the U.S. has strained states' resources. The order specifically says that bringing more refugees into the U.S. through the Refugee Admissions Program would be, quote, detrimental to the interests of the United States, end quote. What this means is that Afghans who were already in the process of immigrating are now stranded indefinitely. In total, there's roughly 150,000 to 250,000 Afghans who are trying to immigrate to the U.S., according to Vanderveer, who also stressed that it's not just families of service members who are affected. The order also impacts Afghan partner forces who worked closely with the U.S. military, women pilots, prosecutors, judges, and human rights advocates. Afghan Evac also estimates that up to 60,000 of those Afghans are refugees, including families of service members, partner forces, and individuals with U.S. associations. Now, 15,000 Afghans had already been vetted and were ready to travel to the U.S., according to Vanderveer, but their plans had been paused due to the order. The State Department had yet to reach out to these individuals in limbo, Vanderveer said when I spoke to him. He was also perplexed by the order since he said Trump campaigned on addressing Afghans who were left behind after the U.S. withdrawal in Afghanistan. During the lead up to the election, Trump criticized Biden's withdrawal heavily, focusing on the Kabul airport attack in Afghanistan in 2021, when an ISIS-K suicide bomber killed 13 U.S. service members and roughly 170 Afghan civilians. Trump even invited Gold Star family members of Marines who were killed in that bombing on stage at the RNC as a sign of support.
President Biden botched the withdrawal, right? Like, President Trump had a lot to say about how chaotic and messy the withdrawal was, said he could have done a better job. He talked a lot about how bad it was that these folks were being left behind. And then they brought up the Afghanistan withdrawal every debate, every day of the RNC Afghanistan came up. They put the Abbey Gate families out on the stage. President Trump sat with the Abbey Gate families for 6 hours in Mar-a-Lago. They've done a good job. They did a good job talking about this.
Vanderveer said he was hopeful that the banning of Afghan refugees was just a mistake and that a fix was on its way. From Military Times, this is Riley Cedar.
Next up, the job of supporting human space flight missions is specific and unique, especially when it comes to safeguarding astronauts' lives. A lot of spaceflight launches and re-entries take place over water. So in the event something ever goes wrong, a crew of specially trained airmen, guardsmen, and reservists has to be ready to act. Here's a look at how they train for the mission.
So for this joint partnership, the 315th Airlift Wing was able to bring down the C-17. Our partners from Hawaii at the 204th Airlift Squadron brought out certified crew members for human spaceflight support. And then we partnered up with the 308th Rescue Squadron with the pararescuemen dropping down here at Patrick Space Force Base.
And I am the Rescue Airdrop Human Spaceflight Deputy Program Manager, and we're here to certify the Charleston Reserve air crews, the pilots and the loadmasters. Our total force partner here with the Rescue Airdrop and Human Spaceflight as we support the launches and recoveries in working with NASA and the SpaceX and Boeing and the Artemis programs.
I'm a combat rescue officer with the 308th Rescue Squadron. Today we're conducting realistic drops of both personnel and equipment into an offshore drop zone, simulating how we would locate and recover isolated personnel in a maritime environment. These vessels behind us are what we're going to be using to support picking up those personnel and packages once they hit the water.
The 308th Rescue Squadron here is providing the Guardian Angel and equipment we use to certify each of our loadmasters and pilots in the Rescue Airdrop program. Today we'll be dropping different pieces of equipment that help to ensure that the astronauts in the program are able to be rescued in the event of an off-nominal or an event, to ensure that we have the rescue qualifications so we'll be able to support the real-world launches and recoveries for the human spaceflight program. Today we'll be dropping equipment such as hard ducks, jet skis that are rigged for the rescue program, along with Guardian Angel Air Force pararescuemen who are trained in the Air Force search and rescue process.
We're going to be jumping from their platform, which is the C-17, which is the platform that we'd be using during human spaceflight recovery operations that we conduct on a normal basis, when working with NASA and other SpaceX platforms, especially here, being so close to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
So the developments in the space industry, particularly the manned space industry from 2020, when Hickam originally picked up this alert, till now, we've seen an increase in SpaceX launches, to include also Boeing Starliner, and now in the future for next year in 2026, looking at the Artemis team. So the requirements for the alert have increased over time. On average, it's approximately 3 to 4 alerts per year. So one way this develops ready airmen for airdrop qualifications is offering them a new mission set. This is a very unique operation for the C-17 to participate in rescue airdrops. So it's something that most of the C-17 crews haven't experienced before. So getting them a look at a different mission set on the C-17 is just another aspect in keeping them ready to go for the next fight. Space travel is expected to be increasing, so the need for that search and rescue alert is going to be increasing, and we'll be ready to answer that call.
When we return, before you know it, it's going to be time to send your cute little toddler to college. Are you financially ready? Our financial expert has tips for strategies when we return. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. In this edition of Money Minute, Jeanette Mack from Navy Federal Credit Union is back with tips on how to get your financial ducks in a row for effective college fund planning. Check it out.
College is, in a word, costly. There's no doubt about it. Last year, the average tuition of a public college education topped $26,000 a year. Private school tuition was about twice that, and that's just tuition. There's also books, housing, food, transportation, travel. So when it comes to planning out how to pay for it all, you've got to get real. Set realistic goals and plans. Start saving early and often. Open an education savings account, a 529, or another type of college savings fund, and contribute when you can. Be smart about where you decide to go to school. Don't pay more than you need to. Think local. Getting the basics out of the way at junior college is a cost-effective way to shave thousands off your total costs. Not to mention, it costs less to stay in-state, whether at a private or public university. When it's time to apply, prioritize the more affordable colleges that offer your desired degree and robust financial aid if you need it. And never, ever neglect to look for grants and scholarships. They are out there, so go find them. If you do your homework, strategize, and save wisely, you can and will ace planning and paying for college.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more coverage of military and defense topics, steer your futuristic electric fighting vehicle towards militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more headlines. And to be the smartest sailor in the sub, sign up for our early bird brief, compiled each morning, bringing you the most recent headlines. Lastly, if social media is where you collect open source intelligence, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And just like most junior troops, we're also on TikTok, so go find us there as well. When we come back, a first look at the Hollywood-level video created by the Navy to help sailors envision how it wants to fight in the future. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Jen Judson. Okay, it's 2025 and you're having a hard time getting people to see the payoff for all the work being done to integrate AI and advanced unmanned systems in your service. To crack the problem, the Navy recently went all out to create a mini-movie depicting a future of battle involving sea, air, and subsea assets, and all kinds of bells and whistles. A Jarvis-like AI presence offering real-time suggestions, and drones launching drones while leaders watch from a futuristic command node staring intensely into the camera when they make a decision. It's all there in a production called Sea Strike 2043. and it's a vivid portrayal of how the Navy says it wants to fight. We got a copy of the video recently, and here are some of the highlights. Have a look.
Enemy forces remain unlocated. Projecting possible red positions.
How much time do we have left?
17 minutes. Running course of action simulations. Cyber exploit should disrupt red defenses.
Banshee flight can deliver the exploit. Banshee may not survive to get in range to launch cyber payload.
Air, what if we modified one of your long-range weapons?
It would require modifying the front end and updating the software, but that could be done.
Improved mission profile. Request additional reconnaissance.
Very well. Direct the Marines to cover the southern strait till they find red or their UAVs fall out of the sky. They can print more.
Banshee flight en route.
Buddy, deploy Banshee 235 for signal-controlled search.
Deploying. Establishing line-of-sight comms via Marine EAB and UAVs. Positive ID and location of cyber target. Plotting launch point for cyber weapon deployment. Warning, incoming enemy SAMs. Engaging incoming missiles with directed energy. Launch point arrival.
Cyber exploit deployed.
Banshee 4 and 5 launching decoys. Decoy sortie arriving at the red Wes.
Decoy destroyed. Decoy 4. Uncontested.
Enemy air defense is degraded. We're in.
Kennedy is coordinating hypersonic strike for unit AIs. Request authorization for auto launch and effect synchronization.
Auto launch and effect synchronization approved.
Weapons free.
Well, that's all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.